All right, Andy, I want to hear what makes Andy Andrews tick right here. I want what are those habits? Give me a couple of the habits, the daily routines that you don't miss.
I get up early. I get I now
How early?
early is a relative term,
Yes.
okay, but early for me has to be I want to get up before my family. I want to get up before my family. Now, if I'm writing, I will get up a lot of times around 4 o'clock if I'm working on a book because I want to be well into into that zone before the sun ever comes up. And and I really started doing that. But every day I want to get up before my family. It is the very odd time that I'm not the first one up. In fact, I can't remember one in the past several years that I wasn't the first person up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I value that quiet time. It's that quiet time where I can connect spiritually, and I am as ADD as they come. So quiet is important for me if I'm going to connect and then get started.
Yeah.
And and so that is that I have to create quiet in our world today. I have to create it. I, you know, there's a couple of things that really started that in me. One is I've read a ton of biographies, and so the people that I have seen over and over again who accomplished almost an inhuman amount of things, they got up really early. Now, Thomas Jefferson was one, but my number one guy is George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver got up every day before the birds ever got up. That was how he put it. And he would go outside and he would say he would get his marching orders for the day.
Hmm.
And if you look at the life of George Washington Carver and look at all he accomplished, I just, I don't even get it. I don't even understand how in one lifetime somebody could accomplish that much. But it has to do with being focused and knowing where you're going from the beginning of the day.
What do you specifically do? Everybody's got their own secret sauce for the morning. What's yours look like?
Well, I get up and I listen to, I shower first and I listen to specific music. Um, and that music is usually Gaither stuff. I listen to, the Isaacs, I listen to Jason Crabb, I listen to the Martins, but I listen to Gaither stuff, a lot of the homecoming stuff. And then I get a glass of water and I head downstairs to my office and I get my Bible, my reading stuff, and I do not turn on my computer, my email, that's the kiss of death for me. I've got to sit down and go through my devotion stuff and my quiet. And I've learned now, I don't know if this is, I'll just tell you this. I have learned probably too late in my life. I probably wasted a ton of time, but I've learned that not only do I need to be quiet to get into an attitude of prayer, an attitude of of talking to God, but I gotta be quiet to get some answers. Um, I realized a number of years ago that the most of my answers in my life came at three particular times. And I'm talking about just like, just things you're pondering and it's like, oh, okay, I know what to do, that kind of thing. Or, you're writing and you're stuck on a plot point or a direction to go. My answers would come in three different times. One is when I just woke up, like I wake up with an answer. Number two was in the shower. And number three was in the woods by myself, hunting or, fishing or in the woods. And I realized that those three times there is no body there. There's no outside stimulus. There's no games. There's no television. There's no radio. There's no phone. There is nothing. And so I realized how many times in my life I had avoided purposefully listening. And think in terms of, if a friend came to you and they said, I need help. I need answers and I need them now. And will you help me? And you said, yes, I'd be happy to. And they said, okay, thanks so much. And then they left. You'd go, well, that was kind of odd. And then, a couple of days later, they came back and said, I'm just telling you, I'm getting desperate now. I'm still needing answers. And you are going to help me, right? Will you help me? And you'd say, yes, I will. And they said, okay, great. Thank you. And they left. You would go, this is weird. You're not letting me say anything. And I cannot tell you how many times in my life I have prayed and asked God questions and prayed and then said, amen. Okay, let me check my email. And I just walked out of the room. And I feel like, God's saying, I would like to tell you something, but you're going to have to stop for a minute.
No.
And I've heard so many people, hunters, guys out in the woods, say, yeah, I feel closer to God out in the woods than I do in church. And I somehow imagine God going, I bet you do. It's the only time you shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an important part of the day for me.
That's huge. It, of course, it reminds me of Bob Bodine, who we've had on the show, and his book, Two Chairs. And folks, you can go look that up or find the book. And it's I know it remains difficult for me, Andy, to be quiet, to stop, to listen. You talked about, ADHD and regardless, that's hard. I want to go do. That's where I'm at. Right. That's where I find my immediate peace, the immediate drug hit. But yet not the wisdom. I love the perspective that you give of that, how put that in real physical life with a friend. And it's ridiculous. And yet I do it day in and day out. So writing, I want to ask you about that. So then you finish your time, and at some point then you do, I was gonna say, pick up pen and paper or keyboard and computer and start writing. How long can you remain creative? What's your creative block? Can you sit there and pound it out for 8 hours, or do you have 2 hours of real good creative juice?
I have 5 or 6 hours, of that. And, but it's a morning thing.
Okay.
I can sometimes go, if I get up early, I can sometimes go until noon. Now I can make myself work in the afternoon, but I'm not nearly as productive, because I find I'm not nearly as productive once other things get in the way. Mm-hmm. And I've told people for a long time, I don't really, love to write. I love having written. Okay. I mean, I like being a writer. I like having books. I like giving books away to people. I like signing books. I like talking about books. I like reading books. But do I like to write? Not really. I mean, every time I sit down in front of the computer, there's probably 20 or 30 things I can think of I'd rather be doing. But writing is a discipline. Mm-hmm. It's a discipline. And it is, I talk to people a lot of times, say, well, I'm going to write a book. And I say, really? Or now, what are you waiting on? And they say, well, I'm just kind of waiting, to be inspired. Not, and I want to say, man, if you're waiting on that, just quit thinking about it. You're just torturing yourself, because I'm inspired on a book generally one time, and that's when I have the idea for kind of how it's going to go, and but the rest of it is sitting down and putting together a puzzle that you have to cut the pieces for.
Mm-hmm. I'm in that right now for the first time. That's a good way of putting it. Putting together a puzzle that you put the pieces for. And I'm vastly, I do enjoy the writing process some. I get lost in it, and I can kind of that when time goes away, there's definitely the laboriousness of the puzzle putting together. But when you have that one topic, or maybe for you that chapter, that is interesting. So what allows you to do that best from let's go to health and wellness. What are the things that you do there that help you be at the clarity and creativity that you want to be at?
Being able to exercise enough so that I can rest is important. I can't sit there all day and then expect to be able to rest well that night and then do it again. Yeah. I have to get out and get something going. We walk a lot. We swim. We do stuff. And I've had a hard time, like the past couple of years. I had neck problems, and so that has been tougher for me. I had surgery now, and so I'm kind of coming back from it and really excited to be able to get out and do stuff. But that was, I learned really to appreciate the exercise when I was unable to, and it's amazing. Without the physical exercise, you don't even rest well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How about nutritionally? What do you do on that side?
My wife keeps us pretty on a straight and narrow nutritionally. And I'm not a big, I don't really have that much of a challenge there. That's not one of my things that I'm just like always thinking about. And, but I do have things that I really like that I have to watch myself, because I can overindulge, okay. And so, but we do a lot of, we're vegetable salads, and we do red meats and fish too, but a lot of fish, a lot of vegetables.
Well, that I appreciate for the health and wellness, though. My interest is in the indulgences. I want you to share
the what?
The indulgences. What does Andy Andrews indulge in?
Man, chicken dumplings just eat my lunch. I love, I really do. I mean, I'm just saying, there's two or three things that
very Southern.
Yeah. Thank you. But the other one is oysters Rockefeller. That's
not okay.
I can just like make a spectacle of myself, and banana pudding. But those are my three like real bad weaknesses. That's like heroin, crack, and whatever. Chicken and dumplings, banana pudding, and oysters Rockefeller. And my wife is kind of a foodie. She watches these Food Network things and all like that. And so, but she gets real bored with me because she'll say, if you could choose anything you wanted to eat, and it's like dumplings.
Oh
God. Okay. I'm just no fun.
You're satisfied at the next church potluck. Outside of the oysters. Tell me about relationships. How many people you got at home these days?
Well, right now it's my wife and our youngest son, a senior in high school.
Oh, wow.
And okay. Our oldest son he's in Idaho for 3 months working with this big outdoor thing. And he has a couple of businesses of his own. And so he has the ability to kind of just move and, go where he wants. And so he makes knives. It's Austin Legacy Knives. These knives marked 1 of 1. And so he does real well with that. And then that has given him the opportunity. One of these big conservancy places gave him the opportunity to come out until November. And so he's out in Idaho. And called us the other day and said, I just saw a moose. You know, we're from Alabama. We've never seen a moose.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can send him here. We had one in our yard last week.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was first time ever. It was the fourth time I've ever seen one, and it was a mama and a baby.
Oh my gosh.
Weirdest thing ever. Well, so, you know, you talked in our first show together, which is episode 819. You and Tom shared the story of you seeing Tom walking hand in hand with his dad, and that picture from behind, which I told people they can see on Facebook if they go and find Tom Ziglar, it's his profile picture, and that how impacting that was for you. You wanted that relationship with your sons. How did that influence your parenting at that point?
Yeah, I watched that, and it had happened at a crazy time. I've got that picture framed beside my desk of Tom and Zig, and I had gone to eat with them. I was in Dallas, and we'd gone to eat at a Chinese restaurant, and Zig was having a harder time getting around, and the week before, somebody had seen my boys and I walking down the sidewalk near our house, and both of them were holding my hand. And I think Austin was like 7, Adam was 5, and they were holding my hand and just walking down. Somebody took a picture of us. I didn't even know they'd taken a picture of us, and they sent it to me, and they jotted the note. I guess they thought they were being funny. I almost cried, but they said, enjoy this. They won't be holding your hands much longer. And so that was just kind of in my mind. And we left that restaurant, and that day in Dallas, about a week later, and I looked up, and Tom was holding hands with his dad. And I almost burst into tears right there. And I got back to the studio. Zig and Jean went back to their house, and Tom and Cindy and Julie and I went back to the studio. And I told Tom, I said, buddy, I don't know if you know how unbelievable this is. I don't know if you know how unusual this is. And I said, please, please, please get a picture for me of that. Please, Cindy, please. And Cindy ended up taking a picture the next time they went out together of Zig and Tom, and took it from behind of them holding hands. And I have had that framed next to my desk ever since. And I have a great relationship with my boys. And it was probably about that, maybe a year or so before that, my boys had the opportunity to meet Zig. And I was so excited. And of course he did the usual Zig, I can spot a winner a mile away. I saw you guys coming, and I knew there's a winner. And I said to the boys, I said, guys, what did I tell you about Mr. Ziglar? And Austin said, Dad said that we were going to meet the greatest speaker who ever was and the greatest who ever would be. And Zig looked and goes, well, I don't know about that. But it was awesome. But I've got a picture of Zig with his hand on my boys. And it's just, it put something in me that I knew that I wanted to work toward. I've seen so many adult children and their parents drift apart I've seen brothers and sisters drift apart, and my family is not a great example. My parents died when I was 19. My sister and I are very close, but I'm talking about beyond, before, my grandparents and like that. My family's not a great example of generational increase in wisdom and wealth and anything. It's like every generation's kind of had to start over again. But I've had the opportunity to watch closely some families like the Ziglars and some families like the Stimpsons in Mobile, the Bullards in Mobile, and I have this opportunity to watch some families that I have said, somebody along this generational line has to throw the anchor. And I'm throwing the anchor here. We're learning something that's going to pass on. We're going to start something new here. And so that picture of Tom and Zig has been a touchstone for me.
I can't get myself to leave it though. As a father, how old are your boys?
Right now, they're 20 and 18.
20 and 18. Okay. I've got, and I've got girls, but I've got a 25-year-old. And then I've got a 15, 14, and 10-year-old. And they are more my muse even than the girls. It's easy to love my girls. It's easy to love the boys too, but it's that relationship that I don't see. I'm going to use the word affection.
Right.
That I don't see. And so I'm curious how you view that, or what you would. We can't be perfect fathers. I can't be a perfect example. I've got my own. You said anchor, to throw an anchor. What would you, if you were talking to another father? If you don't, maybe you just know it for yourself. What is it that you are anchoring with? Let me ask that, with your sons, to foster that.
One of the things that I determined early on that had to be done is we had to explain. There could not be a because I'm your dad. I'm your dad and you will do this. And as long as you live in my house, that's not what we really want. Okay. To say, as long as you live in my house, you will not jump off a cliff as long as you live in that's ridiculous. That's not what we want.
Yeah.
We love them. We don't want them to jump off a cliff at any point. The point is not that once you're away from me, you can do whatever you want to do. We want, here, Kevin, is I think is an issue that people don't recognize. Anytime I talk to people who have challenges with their children, I've asked, what's your MO? What are you trying to do? And over again, I'll hear that this is what they thought, okay, is that we're just trying to raise great kids. We want to raise great kids. We're determined to raise great kids. We told God that if you give us kids, our kids would be a priority. We want to raise great kids. We pray for them. We think about them. And we're going to raise great kids. And I want to say, well, there's your problem, okay, because in reality, you don't want to raise great kids. What you want to do is raise kids who become great adults. That's two different things. Two different pathways lead to each. Now, you can have great kids on the way to becoming a great adult, but if your goal is to raise great kids, well, you can make them be great kids because you're bigger than they are and you got all the money. You can make them be great kids. But we've seen, how many times have we seen, God, they were great kids. They were incredible kids. They turned 18, got away from home, and what happened? And so the idea or the thing that I have determined that is absolutely critical is to explain. And I remember telling Austin, when Austin was 13, and we had a kind of a set too. You know, it was like there was a, you know, it was kind of an obvious, it was something that and I can't even remember what it was, but it was something that I determined we were going to do or not do or something, and he wanted to do it or not do it. I can't remember what it was, but I do remember walking with him. I think it's important to walk with boys. With boys, you know, boys don't do good just like sitting there. Okay, you got to do something, and so walk. Subconsciously, you're walking in the same direction. They don't have to look at you when you're walking. You're kind of side by side. You can change subjects. You can change directions. And I remember telling Austin, I said, look, you know I love you. And I love you so much that I really want like the greatest life for you. I said, but I also know I'm not crazy enough to not understand that at some point you know you're growing up, you're going to get away from me, and at some point you're going to do what you want to do, even if you're living home and you're away from us for a few hours. You're going to do what you want to do, and so we're going to talk. We're always going to talk, because my idea is not that you necessarily always do what I say. I want us to come to an agreement. I said, because I'm not always right. Right. And so here's the thing. If we want the best, I want the best life for you. And I know you want the best life for you. Okay, well, that's one thing. And so if you ever disagree with something that I decide, I'm fine with you disagreeing. Now, you know how to disagree. Okay, we're not going to be mouthy. We're not going to, you know, get angry. But I am fine with you disagreeing. But if you disagree, what you do is you come to me and you say, I'm still not understanding this. So can we, you know, go over this again? Because here's the thing. There is a best. And so we will talk about it and we will find it. And we're going to talk about it until you agree with me or I agree with you. Okay, that you know that you understand, because we're making our decisions based on a future, right? And so one of the most important things I feel like that I did is at 12 or 13 say, hey, do you ever think about living away from home? Do you ever think about being on your own? And they did. And so good. You should. Okay. So I know you probably can't imagine being 40 or 50, but can you imagine being 25? Okay. So if you could wave a magic wand, you know, where would you be? What kind of life are you going to live at 25? And I remember Austin saying, what do you mean? Well, like, I don't know, where you could choose, where would you live? Like, you going to live in the country or the city, in the mountains, or the water? And he said, oh, the water. I said, okay. Salt water or fresh? He said, salt water. I said, okay, salt water. On the beach, the lagoon, the canal, a bay? He said, the lagoon. I said, really? That's interesting. North side or south side? He said, north side. I said, why the north side? He said, because the south side is all sand, but the north side has sand and it also has woods. I said, okay, so, and then it's like your house, condo, tent, what kind of car, you know, I mean, went through everything, and I said, no, these things can change. Obviously, but this is a good, you know, do you know any 25-year-olds who live like this? He said, I don't. He's only 13. And I said, well, I don't immediately. I said, but there are some. There are some. And I said, do you know how to do this? Do you know how to get to that? He said, not really. I said, well, I can't go back in time. I said, but knowing what I know now at this point in my life, if I could go back to age 13, knowing what I know now, do you think I could do it? He said, you probably could. I said, I absolutely could. I absolutely could. I said, but I can coach you to this. And I said, so, you know Coach Saban, and at that time we knew the quarterback at Alabama, and I said, their goal is a national championship, and sometimes Coach Saban says, I know where you want to go, and since that's where you want to go, you're going to have to stay after practice. You're going to run after practice, okay? And so we're going to shift our plans a little bit, and we're going to do a little more of this, a little less of this. I said, I can coach you to it. I said, but it's where you want to go. This is not my thing. It's yours. I'm just trying to raise a great adult.
Training up the child in the way that they are bent, not that we bend them. So, Andy, December of 2015 was when I had you on the show last.
Wow.
And I looked it up while you were talking because it sparked something that I have to admit I forgot. I forgot who to attest it to. In that show 351, episode 351, this is going to be show 821.
Wow.
And you talked about that our goal is not to raise great kids, it's to raise great adults. And if you type in Andy Andrews, the Ziglar Show, raise great adults, which is what I put in there, I cited that multiple times in multiple shows. It's in the show notes and it comes up. Wow. I've used that and I forgot who I got it from. So forgive me for when I didn't give credit due. Buddy, that is it. And I have told my family that. My wife and I have talked about that. She cites that quote that because it comes up all the time. I want to raise good kids, and
right.
No, I want to raise great adults, and it changes the perspective. And what you just said about explaining, I had not thought about it in those terms, but that is probably what I would say is maybe my greatest asset as a parent is talking to my kids. I had my two boys, my 15 and 14-year-old in my office yesterday. And we had just had a discussion just on kind of current events and what's happening. And we talked about that. But man, I'm a guy. Yeah. I don't know how to be your dad. Exactly. I'm trying to figure it out. And just I value that, probably explaining and talking through more than anything, because I do not know enough. I do not have enough wisdom to tell them how they should be, to lead them exactly. But man, we can talk. So hearing that from you is just a beautiful confirmation.
If you can help them understand why. There are a ton of people out there, man, who are doing things they don't even know why they're doing them. Yeah. And they may be doing them because other people are doing them. They may be doing them because it just seemed like a good idea at the time. But if you can help your children understand why, we look at teachers sometimes and we say, you don't tell my kid what to think. You're supposed to teach my kid how to think. Well, then we take them home and we tell them what to think. Anybody who tells them what to think is just as dangerous as anybody else, because when you tell a child what to think, as soon as they turn 18 and get away from you, they're going to start to test the boundary of everything they have been told to think. And they're going to do it without a net. They're going to do it without you there. But if you teach a child how to think, which includes long conversations about why you think the way you do and how you used to think this way, and then Uncle Kevin said this and you thought that, and then it requires a lot. But if you teach a child how to think. By the time they get away from you, number one, they will already have made a ton of the decisions that other young adults have yet to make, but they will be equipped to answer the questions that are knocking the legs out of a generation.
Yeah. I don't know what better value we could give out of this show than that. It's the Habits Show, and we talked about parenting, and I think I will bill it as such because it's a message that meant a lot to me 5 years ago, Andy, and it's just as relevant, if not more, now. You know what? I'm going to ask you one more thing though, because
Okay.
it's an area that I have had. It went from an area of interest to now an area of more importance to me. On the Ziglar Wheel of Life, that personal spoke, that last one, at least in the way that I usually have it, that last one, that personal spoke, which I have historically said, what do you do for you, Andy? What is play? What is fun? But also what is self-care? What is hobby? Any of those, whichever strikes a chord, just what do you do that is outside of the work, the things you're pouring into everybody else? What jumps
You
to
know,
mind?
fishing, being in the woods, being alone in the woods, and doing something with wood has just turned into just an amazing way for me to just kind of relax. But I just I love fishing, love being in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest son's a knife maker, and so that's gotten me interested in wood itself. My youngest son has a business where they take people shark fishing from the beach, Gulf Coast nation. And
Wow.
so just going out and watching that from a distance sometimes is pretty amazing. Just sitting and watching them deal and helping people catch fish. And I feel closer to God. Uh, the Bible says that nature cries out,
Yeah.
and I see it in the sunrise, I see it in the sunset, I hear it in the surf, I hear it in the morning, that turkey gobbling or that those leaves crunching when that deer's walking through the woods. I just love it.
What do you do with wood? You said.
You know, I my son makes knives, and so I've gotten interested in. There's so much wood that people, it's just like junk wood, and yet if you take different kinds of wood, different grains of wood, and sand it, cut it, sand it, you can make shelves and tables, and it's just shocking. There is I don't know if you know what a burl is on a tree, but a burl it would look like a big growth, a big wart or something. It looks like something's wrong with the tree. And what happens is this is actually some of the most valuable wood in the world. And now, if you're listening to this, you'll see this everywhere you look, because these are not unusual to be on trees, and they happen on all different kinds of trees. But it is a fungus or a bacteria or some kind of an insect, something that gets in the tree, and you've seen probably where a tree has grown around a piece of wire or
Mm-hmm.
grown around something. Well, this is what's happened. Some little bacteria or something has gotten in, and the tree has started growing around it, and it's built, and it's like a big nut. I mean, it can be huge, and that it turns out man has not figured out how to make those happen. We can't artificially make them happen. But if you get a burl, if you get a hold of a burl from a tree and you cut into it, it swirls, where wood grain is usually straight. The burl is swirls of wood, and it just sweeps and swirls. And that is the wood that they use in Rolls Royces and Learjets. that's the wood that is the most valuable wood in the world. To find a cherry burl or
Yeah.
walnut burl, it's just beautiful wood.
See the shelf behind me? That was a dead aspen tree.
You see, isn't that
about,
amazing?
yeah, that was on my property, and I cut it down a year ago. And then about 2 weeks ago, we put it on, I got a wood mill, put it on the mill, milled it, sanded it. And there it is. It's a primary hobby, is just doing stuff for myself and my
Dude,
home.
what kind of mill? Do you have a wood miser?
No, it's a Norwood. It's a,
Wow.
it's a Norwood. Yeah. I bought it. When we built my house, I bought it, and it's such a different creative outlet.
It is. I just love it.
I do too. I do too. To go out there, and I'll build, a deck, a roof, a wall, a bed, a whatever. I don't enjoy doing it for anybody else. I just enjoy it. Well, I can't wait till the kids have a house and they want
Right.
stuff
So
in
you,
there.
yeah.
That'll
Go
be
on, Kevin, sometimes go on to
okay.
austinlegacyknives.com and see some of the knives that my son does. And then if you want
Austin.
to see a crazy person, go on gulfcoastnation.com, because that's Adam. The other night they had a 12-foot 7-inch tiger shark, and they tag them and release them from the
Okay.
beach. They're
Okay.
kayaking the baits out.
That is so fun. That's so fun. Andy, thank you again, man. I could
Thank
talk
you,
to
buddy.
you all day long. We could do a new podcast, Conversations with Andy, and just talk. I
Hey,
appreciate,
let's keep in touch. We need to talk more than every 5 years.
let's do it. I appreciate your perspectives and your heart. That's why your books are as impacting as they are, because it comes out there. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, buddy.